Afternoon, everyone. I'm here today to talk to you guys about, or give you a quick summary around illegal crane trade in Africa and South Africa on behalf of my manager, Karen Morrison, who's been working on crane trade issues for the last 12 years or so under the International Crane Foundation and EWT partnership. So forgive me, it's not my forte, I'm doing it on behalf of her, but I'll do my best. So for those of you who don't know much about cranes, I figure I'd better actually show you what they look like first before I carry on talking. Africa has 4 species of cranes. Black crown crane up in the top left-hand corner, wattle crane on the top right, grey crown crane, bottom left, and the blue crane, our national bird, in the bottom right-hand corner. All 4 species of cranes are threatened with extinction on the IUCN Red Data List, and all 4 species are CITES Appendix 2. All 4 species are affected by trade, with wattle cranes the least affected out of the 4 crane species in Africa. So within South Africa, firstly, grey crown crane and blue crane are affected mostly by domestic trade, as well as international trade. So what I mean by domestic trade is that the birds generally stay within the boundaries of South Africa, but international trade is definitely on the rise. Domestic trade routes and players have been identified within South Africa, but we've had significant difficulties in getting authorities to act on information and leads. International trade is far more difficult to pin down, but we do know that birds are generally leaving out of the Joburg area, out of Joburg, OR Tambo and Lanseria airports. And crane trade in South Africa is well organized, and syndicates within South Africa are linked often in more than one way. And interestingly, black and grey crown cranes recently were put on a CITES significant trade review process and included countries like Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, Sudan, Guinea, with the exception, however, of South Africa. And this is mostly due to the fact that Environmental Affairs stated that crane trade within South Africa is mostly unsubstantiated. So they were left off of the significant trade review process, which is very unfortunate. There is also significant domestic trade of grey crown cranes and black crown cranes in other African countries, including Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC and Mali. To basically highlight the major issues faced cranes, grey crown cranes were recently uplisted to endangered from previously vulnerable due to a significant decline in populations across their range in Africa, up to 80% in some areas. And this is due mostly to habitat loss as well as illegal trade. And then the international trade of grey crown cranes, black crown cranes, and blue cranes is mostly going to the Middle and Far East. The picture in the bottom right-hand corner there is a picture of a hybridized grey crowned and black crowned crane in the Middle East area. We're finding basically with the illegal trade, these birds are being mixed together, the grey crown and black crowned crane, and they are able to breed and hybridize. So you can see these birds have a red tinge on the white cheek patches that indicates it's a hybridized grey crowned crane. So most of you guys know that a lot of legal trade information is available on the CITES databases. But everyone also knows that there's serious inaccuracies with the accountability of permits and updating of the trade information on this database. And one of the studies we conducted showed that only 12% of all trade in Sudan was recorded on the CITES database. And if you look at the data on that database, approximately 43% of cranes housed at registered zoos are known to be wild-caught cranes. And if you consider that there's approximately 12,000 captive facilities in the world, and only about 10% of those are registered in some sort of formal association, it's a bit worrying that if of that 43% is wild-caught, you can imagine what's sitting in those other captive facilities that aren't controlled by formal association. This is a picture of grey crown cranes in Rwanda. We recently have started work in Rwanda, in northwest part of Rwanda, and in an area where we thought crane trade wasn't a major problem, or in a country that we didn't think was a major problem. this trip really highlighted the major impact of illegal trade of grey-crowned cranes in this country. And some areas of the country have a 0% fledge rate, and that every single chick produced by wild birds is removed from the wild and raised in homesteads and then sold to various hotels and resorts, where the adult birds will then spend their life in captivity for the pleasure of guests to see. It's not only domestic or indigenous species of cranes that are being affected by trade in South Africa and Africa. And South Africa is contributing significantly to the illegal trade of black-crowned cranes by allowing the importing of wild-caught birds from West Africa, where their numbers are known to be plummeting. These birds have also been allowed into South Africa whilst black-crowned cranes are under significant trade review. So this is a serious concern, in that we are perpetuating trade of cranes that are seen to be an exotic species. So the control of that trade is much less. So there's some serious challenges we're facing with crane trade and trade in all wildlife. And particularly, we've had a serious problem in trying to get authorities throughout the country to follow up on leads and information that has been collected over the last 10 to 12 years around identifying syndicates and trade routes and all the rest of it. This is improving slightly, but it is still a major hindrance to dealing with crane trade. Recently, we've managed to get parentage testing made a prerequisite for the trade of cranes. So basically, chicks are removed out of the wild illegally and then placed with permitted pairs that are held by a captive breeder. So they are legal pairs. And the chicks are then placed with those birds and then sold as captive bred or reared chicks, even though they are wild caught. So parentage testing will really allow us to be able to prove parentage, that the chicks are actually bred and produced from a legal captive pair. But this is obviously a problem with birds that are adult and have spent many years in captivity already, as it is difficult then to prove parentage. They're no longer chicks. And also a major problem that probably a lot of people who have been working on other species and crimes related to other species is that all the focus is currently on rhino poaching in South Africa, and most of a province's resources are being channeled into addressing rhino poaching. And this has really prevented resources being directed to other wildlife crimes within South Africa and Africa as a whole. So basically, it's leaving us a situation where we are not only just cranes, but wildlife, loads of species are destined for a life in captivity, which is obviously something none of us really want to see. Thank you very much.